if people put very little expectations on us, they tell us that they expect very little out of us. And who do you expect very little out of? People who can't do any better. You put expectations on people because you see the potential that they have. I really want you to do better because you can. And if you don't, and you're never going to see what you're capable of. And you're always going to have that question in your mind, what if? Man, what if I had taken this thing more seriously? What if I had played professionally? What if I had fill in the blank? Because it's the what ifs that really torment you, because we populate the unknown with our imagination. And why is an office job so great? Because it's not what I'm doing right now. Maybe if you're working something manual, something construction related. Why would an office job be better? Because it's air conditioned. And I wouldn't be tearing apart my body. And yet there are people who are inside the office looking out the window at the construction workers thinking, that must be dope. You're outdoors all day. You get to work with your hands, get a workout, you get strong. Man, they have the life. Both sides can look at each other. But which life is the better life? That's going to depend entirely on you. What do you make of it? What do you make of it? Probably second semester, but I had a friend when I was in school, I was in high school. I'm sure some of you have this friend, or maybe some of you are that person. His mom, Miguel's mom would always tell us, man, you guys shouldn't drink, but if you're gonna drink, you should drink at my house, that way I know you're safe. So what message did she send to all of us? Yep, as long as you're here. So every Friday night throughout high school, we used to always go to his house, and his mom would be there, and she'd stay in the back in the room. She wouldn't hang out with us, but her whole thing was, at least I know that you're safe. So it became a party every Friday night going to his house. Every Friday night. After a baseball game, he was a football player, so after the football games. Again, I'll tell the story second semester, but I ran across one of the guys who used to go there all the time a few years ago when I was up visiting, and it was a Friday, and we were talking. I ran to him at a liquor store, and he's like, oh, bro, you should come by tonight. You see everybody. I hadn't seen everybody in a long time. Like, shit, where? Like, where do you guys go? He's all, dude, it's Friday. And it had totally slipped my mind. I was like, dope, it's Friday. He's like, bro, it's Friday. His name was Gonzalez. I'm like, what does that mean, Gonzalez? He's like, dude, every Friday, what do we do? I'm thinking about what I do on Fridays. I totally forgotten that every Friday, they still, all those years later, 15 years after high school, they were still going to his house and partying every Friday night. And so my friend, his mom died, she left him the house. The house was paid off. He also got money every month from the casino out in Temecula, which means he didn't really have to work. All this stuff was paid for, and so there they were, all those years after high school, still going to his house every Friday night. You can't help but wonder, like, and all their lives are kind of what you'd expect from people who never grow past that. And you just kind of wonder, like, how different their lives would have been if we hadn't learned that lesson early on. Yeah, Kim. That's good. Now, I like that initial approach, because if you look at this quote, again, like I've mentioned before, that so much of the world is a Rorschach test, it's that ink blot test. Whatever you see is probably not actually in the world, it's more inside of yourself. You notice from the quote, he doesn't say this for good or bad. He's not making a judgment here. He's not putting anybody down. He's just making an observation. Nothing has a stronger influence psychologically and, by the way, on their environment. Don't miss that. The environment of the parents, and especially on their children, than the unlived life of the parent. This could be good, or this could be bad. I was thinking about this idea that you hit up about expectations. And so it could be a matter of, like, I didn't, I know, there's a lot of times there's a dad, I talk to people all the time who were gonna, you remember that? They were gonna. I was gonna, but then, I was thinking of, like, I was telling last period, I had a friend when I was in high school, I'm sure his last name. I played baseball with him, and he was a pitcher. And if any of you guys know baseball, you'll know why this is impressive. he was a senior in high school, and he threw 91 miles an hour consistent. It wasn't like he didn't peak at 91, he threw 91 consistent. That's really, really fast for a high school senior. So he was recruited by a few schools. He got a full ride to go to Hawaii State University. Yeah, which means he was going to go to college for free. I liked him. He's a cool guy. Yeah, not the greatest student though. You know, that's the greatest student. But anyway, he ended up not going because he was telling us one time. Yeah, I'll say it as delicately as possible. He and his girlfriend like snuck into the office, kind of broke in, and they hooked up in the principal's office. And they thought that was really funny. They were telling everybody about it. But she got pregnant. Yeah. So he was gonna go to Hawaii State on a full ride and get college paid for and maybe even play professionally someday. He had the skills that he probably could have played professionally. He was gonna, but then, and the last time I talked to him, it was when I still lived in Los Angeles, so it was a while ago. But I ran into him at a restaurant, him and his wife and some of their children, because at that point they had 4 children. And he was driving a delivery truck for Coors Beer. That was his job at that point, because he had to get a job to help to provide for the family. And then when you're talking to him, I mean, he was gonna, and he was more talented. He was way more talented than me. He was way more talented than me. But I got to go to UCLA and play Division I baseball in college. He didn't get to do any of that because of this thing that he did. And so I wondered since then, like I don't remember how many boys or girls or whatever he had, but I just wonder if he had a boy, if he would have put that son into baseball early and trained him early and made sure he was all the practices and got him private training and like forced his kid into that. And I wonder if the kid was like thinking like, my dad's really pushing me to play baseball, but you know what? I want to paint, you know, or I want to dance, or I want to, or worse, I want to be a philosopher. In other words, did he want to go in a completely different direction? But the unlived life of my friend, I wonder if it would have pushed him in that direction. And then something like that where there's a lot of pressure, it's not because like the parents are evil. It's because they really do want the best. In Eddie's mind, if he had gone to college, he could have played professionally, he could have made a bunch of money, he could have really provided for his family. And I wonder how often he drives around in that delivery truck and just says, breaking into that office wasn't so funny after all. You know, really funny at the time, but maybe not so much in retrospect. And if he then pushes that into his kids, and if his kids then develop this idea that I can never please my dad unless I do exactly what he wants me to do, and of course how that then influences their other relationships in their lives. Because we don't really even know the impact that we have on kids. But then we might say like, yeah, it's terrible the expectations that parents put on kids, but it isn't, I don't know, I mean, would you really want to go through life with no expectations whatsoever? I have a cat, Theodore. He's a good boy. My expectations for Theodore is that when I say, all right, Theo, night-night's time, he gets excited because that's his favorite time, night-night's time. That's when we go to sleep. And he follows me into the room and we go to sleep. Theo really likes that. Do I want Theo to fix my sink before I get home? No, I don't have the expectation he's going to do that. I have no expectations for him beyond something so simple like that. And the thing about expectations is that if people put very little expectations on us, they tell us that they expect very little out of us. And who do you expect very little out of? People who can't do any better. You put expectations on people because you see the potential that they have. I really want you to do better because you can. And if you don't, and you're never going to see what you're capable of. And you're always going to have that question in your mind, what if? Man, what if I had taken this thing more seriously? What if I had played professionally? What if I had fill in the blank? Because it's the what ifs that really torment people, because we populate the unknown with our imagination. And why is an office job so great? Because it's not what I'm doing right now. Maybe if you're working something manual, something construction related, why would an office job be better? Because it's air conditioned, and I wouldn't be tearing apart my body. And yet there are people who are inside the office looking out the window at the construction workers thinking, that must be dope. You're outdoors all day, you get to work with your hands, get a workout, you get strong. Man, they have the life. Both sides can look at each other. But which life is the better life? That's going to depend entirely on you. What do you make of it? What do you make of it? Should you, I don't know, should you become an office worker? Should you become a lawyer? Or should you become a construction worker? I don't know. And the really crappy part of it is that neither do you. You won't know. You can't know. I mean, let's say that you're working in construction and you're like looking in the office like, man, I wish I had gone to law school. I could have. I was gonna. I wish I had. But you don't know. Let's say you go to law school. Let's say you get accepted. And you're driving to law school on your first day, excited about your classes, and a big truck comes over and just smacks into you and kills you. Should you have gone to law school at that point? You may lay there dying going, shit, man, why did I go to law school? I should have been a construction worker. I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday. Her name is Veto. She was, it's coming up on the 2-year anniversary. She was in a car accident. She was at 8 o'clock in the morning, driving to work. She does massage therapy, and she's sitting there at a stop sign. As she's sitting there, she never even sees it coming. A big Ford F-150. The cops estimated the guy was doing 91 miles an hour because of a camera they had nearby. Hit her. She was at a complete stop, just blam, right through, destroyed her car. Actually climbed up onto her car, and then the dude drove away. He was drunk. He was drunk at 8 o'clock in the morning. She had to relearn how to walk. She had to relearn how to use her arm. I mean, her whole body was just screwed up. The doctor said, you may never walk again. She used to do jujitsu. And they're like, that's not a possibility. That's never going to happen. Too many injuries. And so I know her because we do jujitsu together. She comes to the gym. And she was telling me that it was 2 years ago, coming up in September, when this thing happened. She competes. She's competing in a world championship at the end of this month. She was able to walk again. She was able to do all that. And she doesn't have a whole lot of like, I was gonna. But then again, she's got 4 children. She had her first baby at 16, right? And you sit there and go like, how did you make a life out of all of that? How could you, weren't you so far behind? Yeah, she was behind on a lot of things. But doesn't it seem likely, like the person who was never supposed to walk again, who was never supposed to do jujitsu again, puts it together and is competing in a national championship? Actually, it's an international championship. World's coming up. It's a world championship later on this month. That same personality type is the same one that can say, I made this mistake early, but I can overcome it. I can find a way. And so you wonder almost like, where does that come from? Was that put into her by her family? She's still very close with her family. She has seven siblings. And I told her, oh, that makes sense. 4 and 7 expanded. But like, you can never know like what would her life have been like if she hadn't had that baby early. You never can tell what your life would have been like. And that's the thing about a parent too. It's like, oh, I was gonna play professional baseball. Oh man, I was gonna box professionally. But then, there's always the but thens. So, you can't live the life you didn't live. Duh. But what you can do is live the life that you presently have because it's the life you've chosen. Whatever life you're living is the life that you've chosen. Is it the best one? Is it the worst one? You can't use language like that. Doesn't make any sense. You can't know. You can't know. But what you can know is that the life you live is the life that you've chosen. And so you embrace the life that you've chosen, whatever it is. Every single second you're making decisions. By the way, and this is the creepy part, you're making decisions that build your life up or tear your life down. And the decisions you make, even right now, are the same ones that are going to affect your future family if you have one. So whatever decisions you're making right now, you're building up a life that your children are going to be born into. You're making a decision, and whoever you choose to be the mother or father of your children, you've made a decision for those kids. Are who are you? Are you someone who's worth admiring? Are you building yourself up that way? Because they're going to admire you to some degree. Are you the person who you'll be able to honestly look at your kids someday and say, well, when I was in school, So as you guys do these journals, I encourage you very much, hang on to them. At the end of the school year, you're going to have, if you're doing them, you're going to have a collection of your ideas and thoughts as a 15 and 16-year-old, as a sophomore in high school. And 10 years from now, you'll be able to look back in that journal and remember how you were and who you were. And it'll also be great because someday, if your kids come home and they're getting in trouble or whatever, you can tell them, when I was your age,
Never mind.
Oh, never mind. You should be better than I was. Maybe. No. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques. Oh, I'm in there.